Welcome to another episode of the Living in Clarity podcast. Today we have the privilege of interviewing Rabbi Steven Burg, who is the CEO of Aish Global. In this episode, we really got to explore what the Jewish landscape looks like today and the scope of what Aish, under Rabbi Berg's leadership, is going to look like in the future.
Yes, amazing. The guy goes all over the world, meets with leaders everywhere. He goes to Saudi Arabia, goes to Bahrain, he goes everywhere. And really, he's at the heartbeat of what is happening in the Jewish nation.
It's a fascinating interview. You'll really get to hear what that journey looks like from a leader, a true leader. I hope you enjoy.
Yep.
Welcome to the Living in Clarity podcast. My name is Brandon Fisher. This is Coach Ratner, and today we have special guest Rabbi Berg. It's such an honor to have you. Rabbi, you've had many leadership positions with a focus of outreach. Specifically, you were the youngest international director of NCSY. You were an OU managing director, the Eastern director of the Simon Wiesenthal Center, and now you are the CEO of Aish Global, Aish Worldwide.
Wow, that felt really good to hear you read all that.
And we're happy to have you here.
All that off, yeah. First of all, I'm thrilled to be here with two of my close friends.
Yeah.
So both close friends here at Aish, overlooking just a magnificent view of the Temple Mount of Harbayas. I had a lot of jobs. Some people say that's good, some people say it's bad. But I've done a lot of fun stuff around the Jewish community.
I want to start all the way back at the beginning and see how your passion of leadership began. Who were some of the people you looked up to? Who were your childhood heroes?
Sure. My childhood heroes, wow. When I was growing up, I think when I was growing up, I was very different than what I became later on.
Yeah.
Sure.
I was a Yankee fan, and I had some good rabbis in school, but, I had a really good time. And then I came to Israel, and I kind of got more serious. And so a lot of the rabbis I met here, a lot of the personalities I met here in Israel really kind of helped shape me. Mm-hmm. And then when I went back, I was 19, and I walked into an NCSY Shabbaton, fell in love, said, this is what I want to do with my life. And I spent the next 22 years there.
That's amazing.
Getting stuff done, yeah.
Where was that?
It was Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Squirrel Hill, which is actually Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. A lot of people don't know that.
Oh, really?
He actually lived in Squirrel Hill, Pennsylvania, and I was 19, got in a car, drove for 7 hours from YU, where I was a student, and I just had the most incredible Shabbos, and what I saw was this inspiration, spirituality for teenagers. I'm like, sign me up. This is where I want to be, and that kind of kicked off my career.
You were a madrich on that trip,
I was an advisor. They call him an NCSY madrich. So we were. NCSY is amazing because I don't know how many it is now. I left NCSY about 10 years ago, but at the time I left, we had about 800 collegiate volunteers. So the whole organization was kind of built on this backbone of volunteers, which is pretty amazing.
Wow, and it's volunteer based. So
I mean, there are people paid that kind of coordinate stuff, but the overall majority of the participants of a lot of different things are volunteers.
So you went to the Shabbaton and just continued to grow and expand your passion on outreach, I guess, from there?
I mean, I stayed. It was Central East. I mentioned it was Pittsburgh. So Central East NCSY consists of Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, Dayton, Toledo, like that whole kind of area. And I was there 9 years. I wound up for 5 years running back and forth from my dorm room at Yeshiva University. And then when I got married, I became the assistant director there for 4 years. Then I became the regional director of West Coast NCSY for 5 years, and that was San Diego up to Vancouver, Calgary, Edmonton, out to El Paso, Texas.
That's a big area.
It's like the whole left side of North
Yeah.
America. So I got to, as for a Brooklyn boy, I got to see a lot of places.
Yeah. Where were you living over there?
In Los Angeles,
in LA.
And my wife's from LA, so it was great. And then I went back to New York to become the head of NCSY for 8 years, where the last bunch of years I was also the managing director of the OU.
Wow, so you really saw a lot of different cultures in the country, Jewish communities and differences. What were some of those key differences you noticed?
Well, there's a big difference for Jews per se, when you're in a community that has a strong Jewish infrastructure versus when you go to communities, I would go to Vancouver, El Paso, Indianapolis, other places with smaller infrastructure, so it's more difficult. But really what hit me was I was in LA, and everyone basically said, okay, the way this region works is at NCSY, you have to understand, they work with day school kids and they work with public school kids.
Yeah.
They actually do both. And so in LA, everyone said, well, okay, here in LA, we deal with the day school kids, and the public school kids, we go outside. We go to Seattle and Vancouver and Portland, right? And I started looking up the numbers, and it really blew me away. There were 30,000 Jewish teenagers in Los Angeles out of 30,000 Jewish teenagers, if you took Reform, Conservative, Orthodox, Chabad, Beis Yaakov, anyone that kind of associated with the Jewish community, we had probably about 5,000 mailing addresses. Like, we kind of sort of knew where 5,000 of the 30,000 kids were.
Okay.
25,000 kids in LA.
Nothing.
They do not get a Jewish piece of mail. No one knows where they are, et cetera. So then we started something there called JSU, which is Jewish Student Union. We kind of said there was some Supreme Court decisions. The Christian had sued all the way up. I think it was called the Good News Club. They had sued all the way up to the Supreme Court. That, you can't necessarily have religion in public schools, but for clubs. You could.
Yeah.
So we started in Hamilton High School. It's right there in the Pico Robertson neighborhood.
Yeah.
We started our first public school club. We called it JSU, Jewish Student Union. And today there are many, many hundreds of these clubs, but we would show up with lots of kosher pizza, hang out with the kids, and
make relationships.
Boom. Right, that was all. I remember we went to Federation. We were talking about funding, and we had one of our club presidents there, and it was one of these clubs where we had about 100 kids involved.
Right.
And they said, well, how many of those kids are connected to the Jewish community? And the kid's like, I don't know, what does connected mean? They're like, well, how many of them would go to a temple or synagogue on Yom Kippur? So, like, out of 100 kids, I probably know 5 or 6, right? Yeah. So it was like this unbelievable revelation that, like, the Jews are out there. We're just not really addressing them or going after them. So that was a long answer to your question about different communities, but the bottom line is there's unaffiliated, unconnected Jews everywhere we go.
Well, I can see how this completely led you from NCSY through OU all the way to Aish Hatorah, which is like, almost, I hate to say the pinnacle, but maybe it is the pinnacle of Jewish outreach. So many organizations have come out of here, and this is, I teach in the beginners program, foundations, and every day, like, new guys come in, and it's amazing.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's about structuring it. Look, it's kind of funny because I've always done the business end, of a lot of these things. I happen to be also in my career, I've done a bunch of stuff. Every job I took my career was a job no one else wanted. Like, I'm a little bit of a when something implodes, or if I was an attorney,
you're cleanup man.
I'd be the bankruptcy attorney. You probably buy these companies and distressed assets. And, so I go after distressed Jewish assets.
Yes.
And really, a lot of times it's structuring appropriately.
Yeah.
Meaning people would be interested, are interested, but they don't really know how to get in the front door. Bernie Marcus, right, from Home Depot, who's a very big Jewish philanthropist.
Atlanta?
He in Atlanta. He once said, only Jewish community can lose the same customer 5 different ways.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're not real open. It's not so simple to get in.
Yeah.
And we're a little convoluted, and you kind of brush that all aside and let people in.
Yeah. When they say the word Hamish, like, it means like homey. It really means unorganized.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're structuring these organizations, and it's why Aish Hatorah like a business.
Yeah. Look, the balance is this. The balance is that you want to structure things like a business, and appropriately and structurally, but you don't want to lose your heart and soul.
Exactly.
And to me, people have asked me about Aish Hatorah, and I've said, quite frankly, I was literally, I'm talking about just now, I had a conversation with someone where I want to have the professionalism of a Jewish federation, of top-notch Jewish agencies.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, Berkowitz is our Rosh Hashiva, and he's our heart and soul, and we support Torah. Like, I don't want to lose our identity, but there's no reason that we can't function on a top-notch level.
I think I've always been curious about this. Is when I was in LA, I met a Disney executive who was high up in the industry, and I was like, "Oh, it must be like magical to work there." He said, "No, it's a business environment." And that just squashed it all. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's Disney, all the magic. So my question for you is how you, as you just explained, the heart and soul, how do you keep that heart and soul in the work environment here at Aish and what you're building?
So I don't think it's so difficult here in Aish because we have the Rosh Hashiva, we have our Berkowitz, we do have one of the world-renowned, recognized leaders of the Jewish people. So I think that all you have to do is say hello to him, and you're like, you melt. Your heart is touched. The students here walking the hallways. We had a big. I'm sure we'll talk about Aish Vision 2030, right? But our goal is to get 3 million Jews to study Torah in the next 10 years. And there was a huge conversation about where does the yeshiva and the seminary fit into that, because yeshiva has very small numbers. Look, we had over 1,000 guys last year. That's one of the largest yeshivas in Israel, right? But it's small when you think of 3 million.
Right.
So there was a big back and forth of where does that fit in the vision. And basically, the Rosh Yeshiva and myself, we both felt very strongly that the yeshiva is the heart and soul of the institution. And even though we're on this march of 3 million, and let's say the yeshiva will even help us 1/4% in the actual gaining of those numbers, it doesn't matter. It's the heart and soul. The heart and soul has to be a yeshiva, a place like that. You know, and that, so that's how you kind of keep it real.
That's great.
Yeah, you know, one of my goals when I teach here is to expand the yeshiva to, like, you know, in this building there's something called Golden Hall, which is, you know, has dinners for 300 people, whatever. That's going to be the new base midrash. That's going to be where you have 800, 600 students in that room studying.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the proposals.
Yeah,
you know, but it's on. We're in the midst of figuring out the Western Wall experience in the Aish World Center and how that's going to flow, and that's certainly one of the proposals.
Yeah,
I can see which side you're on already. But no, look. The good thing is the culture of the staff here is very transparent, very open. Everything's discussion. Nothing's done behind anyone's back, and that's kind of what makes organizations. You know, like you can't play games. And I always tell people, like, what are you hiding? We're not the CIA. We're like, you know, we're a Jewish outreach organization. Why would you not be very? We're gonna have tomorrow, and you're invited to come. I think you'll be there. We have town hall meetings about every month or every 5-6 weeks where the entire staff has lunch together. And
where's this?
Tomorrow. Yeah, tomorrow. You'll be there. It's in Goldman during lunch.
I'm actually going to be here. I'm teaching
tomorrow. Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so you'll be there. And what happens is we've done this. We set quarterly goals. I know not all organizations. We set quarterly goals, and at least once a quarter we get together and we tell everyone what the 4 to 7 quarterly goals are for that quarter for the whole entire organization, right? Because we're just totally transparent. We're totally open. Right now, we're working on this. You know, next quarter we're going to be working on that, and then so everyone gets a flavor. No one has to, like, you know, be by the coffee machine and say, "Oh, what do you think they're doing this? What do you think?" Like, we'll just, this is it. This is us. You know, if you want to see our finances, just go to the website and click on finances. You know, we're not we're an open book.
One of the things that I've heard you say a bunch of times is that you sleep the closest to the kotel, to the Western Wall when you're here.
That is true. That is true. I am the night watchman. I sleep in this building.
Yeah. Right. Sleeping right here immediately as we're speaking is right in front of us is the Western Wall. Mm-hmm. I'm curious what the Western Wall and this whole area, the whole city of Jerusalem really means to you.
You know, it's complicated for me. You know, when I look at the Western Wall, I think people feel very moved, very emotional. To me, I feel like it's the last barrier between us and the Almighty. Meaning, you know, we fought our way back to Israel. We fought our way back to Jerusalem. We fought our way back to the Old City. We fought our way back to the Kotel. But there's still a base of Mikdash. There's still, you know, the temple, which every single Jew in the entire world has always, you know, dreamt about and still wants. So, on the one hand, I'm thrilled to be here. You know, I think it's the opportunity of a lifetime, and I think, you know, our educational pieces are amazing. On the other hand, until the final redemption comes and we get the temple, so there's, you know, we haven't really fully done what we need to do.
You know, I like to think that, you know, we look at the Kotel and it's beautiful and inspirational, but that was a trash dump. I mean, the gate that goes into the Kotel is called Dung Gate because that's where the air was through their trash down there. And we unified it in 1967. Obviously, we cleaned it up, but like the Arabs must look down at us and they see us davening at this wall they used to throw their trash into, and must think to themselves, "My gosh, these guys aren't going to give up. Like, you know, we're not going to stop."
Yeah, no. Look, we're here for the long haul. Look, the flip side is, I'll tell you, is I've done a lot of personal outreach. We had the heads of the Armenian seminary here in the Old City, who they trained the priests, came here for lunch, you know, had a really nice meeting with them. We've met with other people around. You know, so even though as we're davening and praying, we really want the temple back, but we're still trying to be good neighbors. We're still trying to reach out to people. Because, you know, it's also, the Jews have to be a light unto the nation. It's about humanity. We can never kind of get caught up in that, even as we're kind of fighting, you know, for survival and to be where we are.
Well, having the temple, it's not exclusive, not going to be only for the Jews, it's the whole world.
Correct.
I mean, you can still have the mosque up there, the where they pray.
Correct. Yeah, no, there are many ways to do it without, you know, it doesn't, you know, necessarily need blowing up or replace, you know, but yeah, we'll have to see how that all works out. But we still got to get it done.
It sounds like that's going to be Aish Vision 2040. Well, hopefully soon.
Hopefully 2030.
Yeah, I do want to get into that. How do you, Aish Vision 2030 it's a great name, but we know where it came from. I'd love you to just.
I stole
share
it.
where
You know,
came
I
from.
stole
Yeah.
the name. we were, we were doing this, and the way the whole vision came about was, we do something called EOS. People can look it up online. EOS Worldwide, Entrepreneurial Operating System.
Yeah.
Right, we're a bunch of entrepreneurs, and we have an operating system. And part of it is you have to do your vision and then figure out how you're going to get there.
Yeah.
What I like to say over and over again is vision without implementation is delusion. Right? The three of us, we're smart guys. We can have great vision, but we don't know what step 2, 3, 4 are, right? You see this in business all the time. You can have a great idea. If you can't make it happen, it doesn't happen. So we went to Rabbi Berkowitz and said, look, Rabbi Berkowitz, you are the heart and soul. What should we be doing? And he said, after many conversations of trying to distill it, very much like Rav Noach Weinberg, he says, look, the greatest issue we're facing is the majority of Jews do not have a relationship with the Almighty. We have to fix that, and the way to fix it is through Torah. So we said, great, we're going to get 3 million Jews who are not currently studying to study in the next 10 years. And that was the vision. The vision was kind of done. Then we need to move over to implementation, which we've been working on. But the idea, we needed a name for it, like with that vision, et cetera.
Yeah.
So I had been reading a book about Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
And Saudi Arabia is a fascinating place. They're trying to shift away from oil, go into all other industries. And they have MBS had created this thing called Vision 2030, right? Because their goal is 2030. And they had McKinsey, and believe me, they spent gazillions of dollars to distill this. I'm like, Vision 2030. I wonder what happens if I put Aish in front of it. And so sure enough, it says Aish Vision 2030, And so one of our partners and donors is a terrific guy. I'm pitching him on Aish Vision 2030, and he's a very successful guy. He goes, oh, that's so funny. I do a lot of business with the Saudis. They have Vision 2030. I go, I know. I got it from them. He says, you got to do me a favor. Send me an email, right, about the whole thing. I want to send it on to my friends in Saudi so that they can know that there are a bunch of rabbis in Jerusalem that stole there, and they were so happy. It's our own, way to make peace.
Yeah.
Right. Then you got to go to Saudi Arabia
I
recently.
did.
I'd love to hear about that trip.
It was an unbelievable trip. I went to Bahrain and Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
It was with a group of businessmen. And
American or Israeli?
They were American. They were American. And we went to Bahrain. So first we went to Bahrain. It was unbelievable. And I was saying Kaddish at the time. So I said to them, I'm very careful about where I'm traveling. Don't worry, we'll figure out minyan, So we get to Bahrain, and we're like, okay, it's Shabbos. We gotta get a Torah. Where are we gonna get a Torah? They go, it's not an issue. Jared Kushner gave the king of Bahrain a Torah. We'll just use the king's Torah, right? And this is like the world that we live in. You want to talk about messianic time,
Yeah.
And sure enough, I go down to the synagogue. It's in the middle of this. There's very few Jews in Bahrain, very, very few. We go down to the synagogue where it's kept, and I go inside, take a Torah, wrap it in towels. First of all, everyone's taking pictures of me. I'm like a celebrity with the Torah. Then I walk it out of the shuk, like in the alleyways, back to the hotel. Everyone's just like staring at me, And we lane for the Torah. It was an amazing moment. And then we went to Saudi Arabia afterwards, which was also amazing. And we went to Medina. Non-Muslims cannot go to Mecca, but Medina recently opened up for non-Muslims. So we were one of the first groups to go to Medina, and we were there. And so we were, Muhammad is buried there, and we were kind of had our hotel. We were eating. And it came time for mincha, and I got to say Kaddish,
Yeah.
So we get this minyan together, and we're like 1,000 yards from where Muhammad was buried.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking in my head that the last time there were Jews here was 1,300 years ago. We got slaughtered and kicked out. That's the history, So this is the first Kaddish in 1,300 years. And I remember thinking my dad, who passed away, he would have loved it. It was just unbelievable. Here I am in Medina with my Jewish brothers. 2 other guys also said Kaddish with me, And for everyone there, what a moment, saying Kaddish there. It was unbelievable.
Where'd the minyan come from?
So I was traveling with a Jewish group of guys, about 50 people.
Oh, it's a big group.
So there were a couple observant, a lot not observant, but I have to tell you, everyone was so spectacular when we came to Kaddish. They're like, Rabbi needs Kaddish. We're on a bus in the middle of Saudi Arabia. Go to the back of the bus, and I'm falling all over davening for the. They were really spectacular. They're all spectacular human beings, but they could not have been more supportive of my saying Kaddish everywhere we went.
What did you do for food?
So we had kosher food at the meals. A lot of the meals were vegetarian, but for those of us that wanted kosher, they had from the UAE flown in. So like when I was in Saudi Arabia, I had like the airplane food.
Right, it's frozen, yeah.
One of our hosts one night was very cute. He gets up and he was welcoming us, and it was his home. And he's like, "I hear we have kosher food here tonight. I don't know how kosher it is, but good luck with that." Like, he was just really funny about it, And but yeah, no, we had for a lot of the meals we had kosher food. We figured it out, but yeah.
What was the reception like for you as a Jew in Saudi Arabia and in Bahrain?
So it's very, very interesting, and I didn't really understand this. Now I understand it much, much more, which is I was with a lot of businessmen, right? And so it was tailored to be that type of business trip. Sure. One of the things we heard over and over again, certainly Bahrain, we heard it, was that they felt that the last peace process in terms of Egypt and Jordan, the business flow didn't follow up as strong. Right. And for the UAE and Bahrain and these other countries, they feel that if we create strong business ties, right, then the peace will be stronger.
Yeah.
And so that's why there's so much of a focus on this. And like Bahrain, they're very honest. They're like, look, we have water issues. Israel's got the solutions. What are we, crazy? In Saudi, basically everyone feels a peace is inevitable. It's absolutely heading in that direction. Everyone felt that. I sat next to my dinner at the kosher food. My plastic fork that broke and flew across. I'm like, oh my gosh. But I was sitting next to one of my Saudi friends, and he turns to me and he's like, I watched Abu Eben's documentary on Israel. Yeah. I'm like, really?
Yeah. Wow.
And he's like, I understand, that the Jews got thrown out of Spain. I go, buddy, we've been thrown out of every country you can imagine, But we were talking about Israel, and they're very... they all have issues with Iran. They don't trust Iran. They think Iran's the real issue out there. And they couldn't have been more. I mean, we got to the dessert table, and they were like, Rabbi, you should have some dessert. And so we go, there's like cakes and everything like that. I'm like, yeah, I can't. They're like, hold on. And they're like, do you eat dates? I'm like, yeah, like a fresh dates, okay. Yeah. They bring me out a wheelbarrow. I can't even tell you, 12 different types of, I didn't even know. I always thought like a date was like, the California ones you buy. 12 different types of dates, and I'm like, okay, but they were really good, really hospitable. So many folks in Saudi have gone to school in the States. They've gone to school in North America. So my sister's like, what language you talk? Are you kidding me? They speak like with New York accents. Right. It's very, and all they want to do is make it easier for business folks to come and invest in their countries.
Now, I had heard that you weren't allowed to bring any Jewish articles in that country. Maybe is that an issue now? Could you wear a kippah there? Did you?
I wore my kippah around Riyadh the whole time. I wore it around Bahrain the whole time.
Really?
I did not have any issue. When we went to Medina, because it was like the first group.
Yeah.
So he said, maybe better not to. So I said, it's no problem at all. So I have a nephew who's in Special Forces Maglan, one of these units, and I had his baseball hat. So I wore my IDF baseball hat.
Oh, I don't know which one's worse. I don't know.
So, I was like, okay, if I can't wear my yarmulke, this is my second best.
Wow, amazing. So. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's a good story.
But religious articles, the only thing, we went over the border from Bahrain to Saudi, they check for alcohol. That's what they care about. There's no alcohol law in Saudi. But in terms of religious articles, no one said boo. I wore my tefillin,
Are Israelis allowed to go in there?
Israelis are not allowed to go to Saudi Arabia.
Right.
As of now, until there's peace. Israelis can go to Bahrain. We had some Israelis that came with us to Bahrain.
And they couldn't get into Saudi.
They could not get into Saudi. No, as of yet, you can't unless there's special permission.
They can go to UAE, right?
Yeah, UAE. They don't stop going to UAE. UAE is like,
Have you been there yet?
I haven't gone to UAE.
It's a new playground.
Yeah.
I heard it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. It's New Florida.
Yeah. It's the Middle East is changing, and these guys are very business minded. They want to take care of their people. And it's just a lot of it's changing, and there's a lot of commonalities and common ground, and it's unbelievable to witness. It really is unbelievable to witness.
What's it like to be in a Muslim country versus a Christian country, and what are relationships like with Muslims versus with Christians from your perspective?
Every country is different,
right.
And I've been to a lot of countries around the world. Every country has a certain flavor, a certain way they operate. I've met tons of Christians that loved Israel. I've met Muslims that are supportive of Israel. Christians sometimes are a little more vocal. Certainly in the United States, much more so. But you meet people, and look. It's also a lot different when you meet someone, sit across from someone, when you're writing at them, or talking about them when they're not in the room,
Right, yeah.
But like I have to tell you, I'll just give you an example. When I had the folks that run the Armenian seminary here, the two heads of it, they were delightful guys. I mean, we sat down. I brought Rabbi Rossman, who runs the yeshiva. We brought them to the yeshiva. So the yeshiva, I said, and I said, look, let me tell you my agenda. We're neighbors, and we should just get to know each other. They were a little nervous, apprehensive coming in, but they saw there was no agenda. And I think that in general in life we have to do more of that, more conversing. As Jews, we talk to each other a lot. And we almost like preach to the choir type thing. And we need to expand and speak to people because ultimately we're supposed to be a light unto the nations. Now the nations don't make it easy for us per se, but there's a lot of folks out there that you can speak to, and it's important to find those people. Yeah.
Speaking of nations, I'm impressed. You seem to travel. I had one of my students text me. She was in South Africa. She goes, Steve Berg's in the restaurant that I'm at. Like you're everywhere.
It's a good restaurant.
Yeah. I don't know which one it is. I don't know, but whatever. But you, how many places did you travel to?
I go a lot of places. Especially, Aish covers Latin America, North America, English-speaking countries. So South Africa, Australia, England, and Israel. That's really our turf. I go around all those places a lot. I have been in the Jewish community for a very, very long time. Like I said, I was in the OU for 22 years. I was in the Wiesenthal Center before I got dated. So I have a lot of friends in a lot of places.
Right.
So I generally keep myself to Aish business, but I also wind up, speaking to, visiting other people. But South Africa, I've been down there 4 times. We have a beautiful, beautiful branch in Johannesburg. I was there for Tisha B'Av and for Shabbat, and then I went for the next Shabbat to Cape Town. It was my first time.
Really? I heard it's amazing.
Cape Town, beautiful. Wow. I've traveled the world. It's one of the most beautiful cities.
Yeah, I'm dying to go there.
I have this amazing friend named Avi Levy who I met in Bahrain and Saudi Arabia. That's where we met each other. And he's like, you got to come. I go, I'm coming. I don't know if he thought I was serious. And I actually had my wife, and we just had the most fantastic time. He took us all over, and it's just, he's just a dear, dear friend. And when you travel all over, you get to know the Jewish communities, you get to know their issues, what they're wrestling with. Everyone's wrestling with assimilation in their marriage. I mean, that's decimating every single, some are doing a little bit better. And then you see certain ideas. There's certain things different communities are doing differently, and you can kind of, you can share them with other places.
I would love to hear some of those ideas. What are some of those things that are working well that you've seen?
If you go down to Latin America, for example, Buenos Aires is a beautiful, Federico Wheel and Mariano Wheel, they're brothers. They just built this magnificent, beautiful shul in a total area where there were no real shuls down there. Wow. And so they're running programs with Olami, these learning programs, and it's based in the shuls, and the same thing in Santiago. In Latin America, you see it's like very based in the institutions, and then they're trying to get into Israel, and they're just much coordinated. America's much tougher. America's all over the map, So when you have these smaller, concentrated areas, it's a little easier to kind of identify the people and be able to work with them.
Well, I think there's a difference. I've noticed when I've gone on some trips here, that people from outside the U.S. are much more spiritual. It seems like they're much more connected to God, and it's easier for them to take on mitzvahs and learn things. Right. But Americans, it's almost like they're so far removed from Torah and God that it's hard to connect.
I would definitely say that that's true. We go to places like South Africa, people are much more traditional.
Yeah.
But you know what it is? America's ahead of the curve, meaning 30, 40 years ago in America, people were more traditional.
Yes,
and America just moves much quicker. Right. You go to Latin America, or you go to South America, or even Canada.
Toronto.
Right, Toronto. People are more, but unfortunately, it's heading in the wrong direction.
Right.
And probably they'll catch up to America.
Yeah.
But America has always kind of been ahead of the curve. America's so big and so wide, and the crux of America is the melting pot, right? They want everyone to be able to be able, and there's a lot of beauty in America. I think, personally, if you ask me, I think the creation of democracy in America was one of the greatest inventions in the history of the world, and I can't imagine there wasn't a little bit of a smile on God's face, when he saw them overthrow slavery and create democracy and all those pieces. But like anything else, it unfortunately runs into some trouble.
Right.
I'm curious what outreach looks like today in the world, since you've seen a lot of it, and because we've already been talking about how the communities have been developing, and unfortunately intermarriage is rising. I'm curious about anti-Semitism as well. What does outreach look like today? And if we are successful at Aish, what would that look like in 2030? And what do we expect the difference can look like?
I think there's something very important about our vision, and I think that sometimes it gets lost as a nuance, but I think to me it's the most important thing out there. Our goal is to basically reach 3 million Jews and have them study Torah and get closer to God. It is not to get them to keep Shabbos. It's not to get them to keep kosher. It's not. Now, mind you, I'm thrilled and ecstatic when that happens. Okay, I want a little caveat. I've been saying this a little too much on camera and on microphones, but the bottom line is we really do believe that the Jews need a relationship with God, and I think that as a result of the fact that someone's born a Jew, they have that birthright, right? Not just the organization, but that's their birthright is to have a relationship with God, and they just don't know it. So you go online, you find everyone's online looking for love, and they're looking for spirituality. They don't really understand that, like, you were born a Jew, you have an innate ability to do that. And our job is not like a snake oil salesman, like, come here and I'll put some tefillin in the corner, But like, it's really to say, okay, you can be this incredible person, have a close relationship with God, and it's going to enhance your life. That's our job. That's our job, is to show that this could be an amazing way to live your life, right? And we have to stay focused on that.
I love that.
Yeah, from my experience, I wasn't raised in an observant household, so when I started learning Torah and became more observant, for me, everything was about relationships, right? So I know Aish Vision 2030 is about through social media, from what I understand,
Sure.
but like, you still have to have those relationships with people. You still have to have those personal relationships.
Yeah. Yeah, look, you're beyond right, and I'll tell you what our thought process is. Our thought process is that in the 1970s, when Aish was started, so if you look out the window, kind of in back of us, so you see the Western Wall, and there were truth seekers. That's what we call them, truth seekers.
Hippies.
Yeah, people are floating around the world, backpacking, show up there, and like would just walk into Aish and go to a class, etc. The world's changed. You don't really have people floating around there. You don't have people seeking out truth as much. You don't have people like it. Just the 70s. It changed at a certain point, and so where we find people has changed. Everyone's online. Every single Jew in the world's on social media.
Yeah.
So we created a website called Aish.com for the last 20 years. It's been phenomenally successful, right? 1 million people a month. And we just realized, okay, now we have to go to social media. So we hired Jamie Geller, right, who's this social media phenomenal person.
Yeah. We've been lucky to have her on our show.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you know exactly. To work with Nehemiah Coopersmith, who's a phenomenal educator and who built Aish.com, in going to TikTok and Instagram, because every young person is on TikTok and Instagram. And you know what? In a year, we're right now on 7 social medias. We're going to be on other ones. We have to go where the Jews are.
Right.
We have to go where the Jews are. We can't just sit back and be like, in the synagogue going, why is no one showing up?
Mincha.
Yeah, we got to market. We have the best product, and we just got to market appropriately.
What are the barriers that have made it so hard up to this point to market to these Jews, to reach them?
It's attention span. It's getting in front of them, having them understand. Many Jews who are not connected are terrified to walk into synagogues.
I know,
right? Yeah. Terrified. And NCSY one time, I had these two young women, and they were getting involved. It was in Detroit, and they did not want to go into the synagogue. And I was like, okay, Mincha on Shabbos afternoon, Mincha. There's no one there. There's no one in the women's section. You'll come in, you can pray, and no one will even know you're there.
Yeah.
They're like, great. No one's gonna go pray. So they go to pray. I walk up to the rabbi. It was Rabbi Steve Weil at the time. I said, do me a favor, can you welcome those 2 girls? He gets up. We'd like to welcome. And they turned beet red. But after that, they were totally comfortable, and they actually started going every Shabbat to daven there. But it's people are very nervous to kind of engage. Like, what does that mean? It just, they think it's something totally different than it is.
Is it rooted in fear or just unknown?
Well, I think it's fear of the unknown. I think it's fear of I like my life the way it is. I'm having a blast. Like, why would I want this to change? The only problem is at some point, as you get older. The world changes on you, and then what are you left with? I used to, believe it or not, I went to rabbinical school at Yeshiva University, and they asked me what I wanted to do, and I said I wanted to work with teens. So they put me in an old age home. This is like a true story. Couldn't make it up.
Yeah.
Guy called me a square peg in a round hole.
Yeah.
Right. I'm like, so he put me there. No problem. So I used to go, and I would do the Shabbat service. I would, Shalom Aleichem. It was great. Really nice people. But it would never cease to amaze me that, like, it didn't really matter how famous you were or what you had done or how wealthy you were. At the end of the day, the people whose kids would come visit them or the people who had visitors, that currency was gold.
Yeah.
And how many people you influence in your life and how many people are with you towards the end, that's huge. And people don't understand that when you're young. You're just, like, having a good time.
You don't think about that.
Right.
No, you don't.
Yeah.
Wow. So was that practice? Did that actually work out in helping you be more prepared for dealing with teens? What are the similarities?
It definitely made me a more empathetic individual, and I knew what I was doing. I knew where I wanted to go. To me, it was teens for a long time, and now it's Aish, but it all revolved for me around inspiration. Right, I believe that if you don't live an inspired life, then you're not living a life.
That's right.
And so we need to have people become passionate Jews and be inspired Jews. If a person's a passionate, inspired Jew, they're not going anywhere. Right. The Jews that walk out the door are not passionate and they're not inspired. Yeah. And so, what the heck? I'll just go to something else.
Yeah.
Well, they haven't been taking classes here yet. That's why.
Correct. No, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. It's very unusual to have someone come here taking class and be like,
that was boring.
Yeah.
They're like, where else can I find you?
Absolutely. So how do so we got to figure out how to get in front of people.
I just met a shadchan, which is a matchmaker, yesterday. And she told me, well, you go to Aish, so you're really inspired. But eventually you're going to get into the bigger world, and people don't live like that. And I was like, that's so sad.
No, not true.
But it made me so happy to be part of Aish.
Yeah, just depressed the heck out of me. Yeah. Please don't go back there. Please don't go back there, or at least give me her number.
She's a great lady. And
I'm sure she's a wonderful lady. But look, the bottom line is no one walks around like happy, smiling, all type, etc.
Rabbi Pliskin.
And maybe don't
I take it back, but you got to work at it. You got to work at it,
right.
and that's what Aish is all about. It's about. I think Rav Noach was brilliant because, and if you ask me, there were two pieces that drew me to Aish more than anything else. But the number one piece was God. They're so God conscious here. God, here's an empty seat. God's sitting right here next to me. Right. And we actually had Rabbi Ephraim Goldberg, who does around.
He was here yesterday.
So he did a podcast with Rabbi Berkowitz, and he said it struck him. Rabbi Berkowitz talking about how God was sitting at his kitchen table. And that's the way. If you really feel like God is with you on the ups and the downs and the whole thing, then you'll be okay, right? Absent God, it's really tough without a relationship, and you got to work at that relationship like any relationship.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'd love to talk about some of the challenges in your position here at Aish.
No challenges. Everything's great.
We got a town hall tomorrow. I don't know how these go over, but I'm curious how you handle the challenges and what maybe some of them have been coming in as a CEO.
When I came in, Rav Noach had passed away a number of years before I got here. And like any other business, when you pull the charismatic founder, CEO out of the business, you encounter all kinds of issues. No one really appreciates what the CEOs do until they're gone, right? And so we had all kinds of money. I mean, when I took over, I would say 7.5 years ago, we were bankrupt. I don't use that loosely. We had creditors tracking us down all over the place. We were 3 months behind on payroll. It was very, very tough. And that was, no one had done anything wrong. It was just without Rav Noach, things started, didn't continue the way they were. And my first 4 years here, we paid down, outside the budget, we paid down $11 million in debt, right? That was, it's one thing to raise your budget. It's another thing to raise your budget and then know you have to do that as well. But we worked really hard. It was just a team of incredible people. I have an amazing CFO, other people. And then once we had done that the first 4 or 5 years, then we were ready to kind of get back in the saddle and create this new vision, bring in Rabbi Berkowitz and all those things. So, the challenge is right now, look, I'll tell you, when I came in, our budget here in Jerusalem, I think was around $8 million. And again, we certainly didn't even have that. Our budget this year was closer to $22 million. And there's a lot of money to raise, and you want to grow, and thankfully we're having a lot of success. Look, the yeshiva 7.5 years ago was a handful of guys. Last year we had well over 1,000 guys came through. Now we just started a seminary. We said, so we gotta raise a lot of money. The good thing is that donors really feel like they know exactly where it's going now.
Yeah.
It's much easier to make that case,
yeah.
But that's still work. And as you grow, like in any business, I'm sure you see this like crazy. When businesses grow, there's a whole nother set of problems.
Yes, yeah.
Like I have right here in the yeshiva, right? Way too many guys.
There's no room.
There's no room.
No,
there's no room.
It's a good problem.
So it's exactly what I said. It's a good problem, but it's still a problem.
Yeah.
And you have to solve, and so we're working hard to push ourselves forward, and we think we haven't even begun to scratch the surface of potential, Aish. Not even close.
I'd love to hear a little bit more about what you perceive as some of the potential.
Look, I think we're working on the 3 million.
Who are those 3 million?
Yeah, so the 3 million are people that studying of Jewish wisdom is currently not a part of their life. We're working hard on the definitions and how to identify them. Right now, there's a working definition of studying 4 times in the course of a month. Right, which is significant because it's every week to be a part of their life. We're taking a look at the psychology of how someone makes it a part of their life. Right now, according to our count, we've got something, I think, 192,000 learners that we have come on board. Now, the way you do it is not 3 million divided by 10 is 300,000 a year.
No.
We're still
slowly.
Yeah, we're still in the ramp up stage. We're about a year and 3/4 into the 10 years. And we're still learning things all the time. We have a donor, Bob Diener, who's just the most wonderful human being, bar none. Hotels.com. He gave the terrace upstairs, and I always tell him it's the most romantic spot in Israel. If you go up there right now, there's champagne and roses. Some guy's getting engaged. I walk down here. I take a quick picture coming down. So Bob Diener told us, and I've kept this very close to me when he said it. We pitched him for 2 hours. And he's a guy who did Hotels.com, did Getaroom.com. And Bob said, he says, look, wherever you wind up is not going to be where you start. You're going to learn a lot along the way, and you have to be willing to change.
Right.
So I'll just give you an example. When we first started this journey, so we assumed we would go to social media, we would leave breadcrumbs, and it would lead back to Aish.com, which was where the content would be. Right. Number one, we found out that people do not like to leave their social media. Right? If I'm on TikTok, I want to stay on TikTok. Number two, the social media entities don't want people to leave and disincentivize leaving. Number three, and this is huge, we made an assumption that we could not give real Torah content on social media, and we were wrong. We were wrong.
Really?
And we have subsequently found that we can put Torah content out on social media, that people can digest Torah content that way. And that's been a game changer. Everything we do, by the way, goes back to Berkowitz. Like when we make assumptions, we go back to Berkowitz and say we want to make sure, because you have to make sure you're thinking straight. And he's the one that counts that. So that's been huge for us, just putting straight Torah content right to the consumer instead of trying to create this pathway.
Wow, and it sounds like it's already off to a great start with 172,000.
192, yeah.
I'm glad my mom count her as part of that because she was on the mom's trip that your wife led.
Yeah.
I'm curious how trips like that and experiences play a role in the vision.
Trips are the most important thing we could ever do. I mean, for someone to come to Israel and spend some time here and actively, look, you can get content off your phone, but how engaged are you? Versus sitting in front of someone, making friends, creating community, building community. So the trips are always the ideal. But for a lot of us at Aish, we support a lot of folks that are running these trips. Meaning, the way I view Aish is, I don't think I have to be cradle to grave or A to Z. I'm happy to support other organizations, other institutions, other people that can run trips, that can do Torah content.
Right.
I'm happy for people to get involved with us and then hand them off to other people. Like, this is not, we got to work as the Jewish people. We can't work as teamwork. It's all about teamwork. Teamwork makes the dream work.
There's no or. This is not us or them. It's us and them. Let's bring the Jewish people together.
Amen.
I'd love to, unfortunately we'll wrap it up, but I'd love to give you an opportunity. It's my favorite question. If you could have a billboard, what would it say, and what's that message that you'd want to get out there?
Woo! A billboard, huh?
Yeah.
One billboard?
Yeah, one.
I would buy like 100. That's the way my mind thinks, Wow. To me, it would just be like, join us inspiring the Jewish future. Like this is about our future. It's about inspiration, passion. I would just get up there and be like, come to us, and be inspired.
Join us.
Unfortunately, I'm not as clever as Jamie Geller. I'm sure. She had probably done research and knew that question was coming. But
I forgot what hers was.
Look, it's you need good marketing and good branding. I told Jamie Geller knows this. I shared this with her. My kids and I were at the San Diego Zoo, right? And there was, everywhere you went, they had big pictures of rhinos, and on it said, "Save the chubby unicorns." And I said, "Wow, that is the coolest marketing
That's really funny.
I ever saw in my
Save the chubby
life."
unicorns.
And I keep telling Jamie Geller, we need that for Aish, where you're thinking, you're like, that's, but, in NCSY, we did Inspiring the Jewish Future. That was our tagline and stuff. And I think for Aish, the only difference I would say versus when I did NCSY. NCSY was much more inspiration. Aish is also education. It's about inspiration, education, and then ultimately leadership. Right? Everything you have to be inspired. You got to get educated, and then you absolutely have to turn around and you have to lead.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about.
Get out there and make the difference.
Yeah.
Show them who they can be.
Right. That's why Brandon runs the leadership program at the yeshiva.
Yes, I believe I'm booked there in an hour or two.
Oh, tonight. Okay.
Yeah.
That's right.
Double header.
Yeah.
Is there any other message you'd like to get out to our listeners?
Yeah, look, I think that what the two of you doing is super important. And this is something I try and tell people all the time, which is with social media, anyone and everyone can do this.
Yeah.
Everyone can make a difference.
Yep. You
can fight anti-Semitism. There's two sides of this coin, right? I always say, Moses not only saved us spiritually by giving us the Torah, but he also saved us from genocide in Egypt, right? Physical and spiritual. Right. Everyone could be in that fight. So, whenever I get invited to any of these, I'm there in a second because I think it's so awesome that people are doing that. And people, I only have 100, 200,000, or whatever it doesn't matter. Those are people.
Yeah.
And your people are hearing you and they're listening to you. So my advice to everyone is that we have to get out there in the cyberverse, or I don't know, meta, whatever is going on out there now. And we got to show them that Jews are strong.
Yeah. Because it's our job to save the world, not to change the world, not let the world change us.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, that's your dose of clarity. Thank you for joining us on the Living in Clarity podcast.
Thank you so much, Rabbi. It was great having you. Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Living in Clarity podcast.
If you enjoy what you just heard, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment with any suggestions for future episodes.
We'll see you next time.